Thank you for joining me as we've reached Psalm 20 in our ponderings in the Psalms. And this marks quite a change in the sort of Psalms we've been looking at so far. Up to now, most of the Psalms have been deeply personal. One man, mostly David, crying out to God, either in deep distress or lament, or sometimes in confidence and assurance. But the next Psalms, particularly 20 and 21, are very much communal Psalms. They're intended to be sung and used by the community of God's people, not just any individual. And I think the commentators are generally right when they say that these two Psalms, 20 and 21, form a pair. They both revolve around probably a military or a battle situation. And Psalm 20 is a prayer for victory for the king as he goes into battle, and Psalm 21 is a prayer of thanks to God as he gives victory to his king. And of course the king is seen as the anointed representative of God over his people. So let's just take a brief look at Psalm 20. And as some of you will be familiar with this, I'm always trying to show you the structure of the psalm, because that helps bring out the meaning. And I want you to notice in Psalm 20 that there are three key structures, three key segments. There's verses 1 to 5, and they're distinguished by people praying for somebody else in the third person. I call this the people's prayer for their king. Notice how the prayer goes. May the Lord answer you in the day of your trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. It's all a praying for someone. And the idea here is that this is prayers, although in the psalm addressed to the king, nonetheless they're really prayers to God, that he might bless and prosper and protect and deliver the king. So the people's prayer for their king. Then in verses 6 to 8, there's a different speaker. There's an individual speaking now. Probably, though we can't be sure, it's probably a priest leading the worship of God's people as they dedicate the king and his army as they go into battle. Now I know that the Lord saves his anointed. And it speaks about the collective trust of the people of God in their God. So you have the people's prayer for their king. You have the priest's persuasion about the king. I know that the Lord will save him because we put our trust not in chariots and horses, but in the Lord himself. And then thirdly, we're back to the people's prayer in verse 9, and it's the people's prayer again for their king. O Lord, save the king. But here's the thing I want you to notice as we look at this psalm. I want you to notice the ground, the basis for the people's prayer for their king. And it's really coming in verses 2 and 3. May he send you help from the sanctuary and give you support from Zion. May he remember all your offerings and regard with favour your burnt sacrifices. They're praying for their king, who they know to be a godly worshipper of Yahweh. And that's what then gives the priest confidence later to say, I know that God will hear our prayer. God will answer and God will deliver. Friends, I find that very challenging, but also disturbing in a strange sense. Because the Bible calls us to pray for those in leadership over us, those who have the rule over us. We're to pray for kings and leaders and other rulers. But I can't pray that sort of prayer for my leaders in general, because the leaders that God has raised up in my country at this particular time are not particularly known for their godliness and their God-fearingness. So I pray for God to lead and to direct them, although they may not even acknowledge it. I pray for God to humble them. I pray for God to have mercy on us as a nation. And I pray that God would spare us and yet raise up for us leaders that we might pray this sort of prayer. Maybe you're watching this and you can pray this for your national leaders. Well, the Lord bless you. The Lord bless you. I can't do it here. But nonetheless, I do pray that God would raise up some that I could pray this prayer for. But maybe you know somebody involved in Christian ministry and they need God's protection, God's deliverance, God's prospering. Well, pray this prayer for them as they seek to give leadership to the people of God and the ministry of God. Next time we'll look at the partner to this prayer as we look at Psalm 21. And until then, the Lord bless you.